the Gray Matters podcast. We are back. It's been a minute, but we decided not to be one of those podcasts that didn't have anything to say and just had episodes anyways, because there's enough of those out there. So Tim and I have been busy. Life has been lifing, but we're back because we found an important thing that we want to talk about that is that's a hot topic right now in coaching circles, in the corporate world, really anywhere people interact with each other, and that is the idea of psychological safety or lack thereof in people's workplaces, in their family units, or even especially where we're seeing it in youth sports. And so that's going to be a little bit about what today is about, just so you guys buckle up, because we are going to quote unquote create a safe space and talk about our feelings and talk about appropriate ways, like scientifically backed, proven ways to do that, and what it looks like when you implement those things with the athletes that you work with, your coworkers, and yourself.
Yeah, that's, it's an interesting concept in general, right? And, the reason that we put it in quotes is like most of you have probably heard that term, and it generally, you kind of roll your eyes. Oh, okay, safe space. Like, and in general, like the concept is solid, but the execution, like especially from a socio-political perspective, has been really, really piss poor. So in other environments, right, outside of like education, for example, or higher education, especially, it was, the idea of safe spaces just kind of ran rampant, and to the point where, professors couldn't say like, or share like objective data in class, right? Because, that I'm triggered. Okay, well, this is objective data. Like, it doesn't really care if you're triggered or not. That's not what we're talking about, right? We're talking about how we as coaches and leaders can create environments where our athletes, employees, coworkers, colleagues, et cetera, feel safe to take risks, to maybe be more vulnerable. We love to talk about feelings, as you know. So it's par for the course. But the kind of the impetus for this was in my coaching mentorship group, someone posted a link to an article about an Aspen Institute survey, on youth sports through their Project Play initiative, which, if you're in coaching, you probably are familiar with. And the survey was wide ranging, but the thing that really stuck out to me was there was a section on why kids quit sports. And some of the data was just like heartbreaking. And the biggest reason that kids quit sports, and this is 29% of the kids that responded to this, said that I'm not good enough was the reason that they quit. And like, to me, that's not a thing a kid should ever say about themselves, like specifically within youth sports, right? And this actually, like, you could take this into high school sports if you wanted to.
Yeah.
And, there's the whole idea of like every athlete on your team should have a role. That's the coach's responsibility to, think about like creating a safe environment for kids. It's the coach's responsibility to make sure that like the kids who may not be as skilled, but still want to be part of your program, that they have a well-defined role and that they understand what it is and that they know it's important and they know that they're important. Because like the second most cited issue with kids who quit sports was bad coaching. And obviously like those two go hand in hand, right?
You
And I mean,
don't, you
we've
don't
all
say.
seen it, right? I
Yes.
mean, like we see examples of it on social media all the time, but I'd be interested to hear what your perspective is on some of those things.
Yes, I love the idea of like bad coaching. So one of the first high school jobs, do you remember the show Friday Night Tykes
God,
on
yes.
TLC,
Yeah.
HGTV? So when I first transitioned into high school strength and conditioning, that group of kids from Friday Night Tykes were now becoming middle schoolers and high schoolers.
No.
And it's just an infamous organization in the San Antonio area that kids are a part of, they're coming out of. We would even have kids on our varsity sports teams, like still playing. You're playing varsity football on a Friday, and then you're still going to this Taifa Saturday morning like football league
That's wild.
for whatever reason. Yes, dude. And it was just like, oh, so and so was on this team, so and so was on this team. I saw him on X, Y, and Z. So when you Yeah. So when I think of the word bad coaching, obviously that's a TV show when things were blown out of proportion and they saw what they wanted to and showed you different
Right,
things to
right.
sell viewership. But yes, that is what I think of. And now even youth sports in general, there's been a ton of content coming about how it's just like now it's a money making machine and there's venture capitalist firms that are investing in these youth sports leagues and backing them
Yeah.
with fun uniforms and everything. And so when I have parents, now that my friends are having kids that are getting into middle school, high school. Hey, when should my kids start playing football, start doing X, Y, and Z? And I just tell them, hey, like if the first time a kid plays tackle football is when he or she is able to in seventh or eighth grade, perfect.
Right.
Because at least that at that point, the coaches that they work with at the school are going to walk in knowing there's like I've got basically a clean slate. I don't have to break
Yeah.
any bad habits that someone was taught playing club sports, coached by who knows what,
Right.
watching videos of who knows who. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And
And
this idea, yes, and now this idea, and I personally think a lot of it when Twitter became so heavily involved in the college recruiting scene, right? And social
yeah.
media, where now everyone's like, thank God for my 17th offer. I'm blessed and highly favored to receive an offer from Western Baptist Continental University. And it's not even
From
an
J
actionable,
from
it's
JG
not
Wentworth.
yes, and it's not even and from the college coach's point of view, like, it's not even a committable offer, like, the kid couldn't get a
No.
scholarship anyways.
Right.
So I found an article, it was written by an ESPN recruiting analyst, and the article talked about, "Here's what a committable offer is, here's what it actually means," and so anytime someone would come to me with recruiting questions, "Should I use this third-party organization?" I would just send them that article, and I was like, "Here's the deal, like,
No.
unless you get invited to one of those summer camps, don't go because 'cause you're just giving them $100 and you're getting a T-shirt, and they're not gonna pay attention to you anyways, and if you do show up at one of those camps, or if you're a parent and you're listening to this and you show up at one of those camps, like, you will tell the kids that they're actually looking at because they will all be in the same group. They will all be 4 to 6 inches taller than everyone else,
Right.
and when I was at the college level and we would do camps like this, we would give those kids practice jerseys from
Yeah.
our equipment room. So we knew who they were. So it's super important that yes, the idea of sports became this thing of like the point of playing sports is to play in college and professionally. That's like when we lost what it was actually about. And I 100% fully believe the point of competitive athletics, middle school, high school, is to win, right? But the byproduct of doing the things correctly that leads you to winning is what you actually get out of it and take from it.
Right.
And if you are a coach, you are absolutely and you should be judged on your win-loss record if that's what the administration that you're sitting underneath is like decided they're going to judge you by, right? Because
Yeah.
it's what people get judged by anyways at the end of the day. So yes,
Right.
this idea of 21, a third of the kids quit use. So this survey, what was the age range for the kids? I didn't see it in
I think it was like just developmental athletes in general. So that could be like youth, like
like
pre-middle school to middle school
K
to high
through
school.
five. Yeah. Okay.
And really probably all the way up through high school.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah,
Absolutely.
even
Yeah.
even
Obviously.
some of the comments, it's like one is I never felt confident enough to try. Everyone else seemed faster, stronger, and I didn't want to embarrass myself. I didn't feel like I fit in. It's like
Right.
that is just like layers of shit, but primarily like starting with coaching, right? But like
Yes.
that's just like these it's just sad. Like no kid should come away from sports, whether they continue to play or whether they don't, feeling that way, you
Right.
know? And then you add another layer to that. This is within the same survey, showed that there was like a 35-40% increase in kids quitting or just being generally dissatisfied like with their sport experience due to their parents' behavior.
Ooh,
So yeah, and
it's ironic.
the number one thing was like parents getting angry about their kids' performance, getting compared to players on their own team, and criticizing their skills or abilities. Like
Yes.
that to me is unforgivable. Like all those things are unforgivable. I can understand, okay, maybe if it's kid who's a junior or senior in high school who is college bound, yeah, there should be some conversations about their performance, maybe a comparison here or there. I would leave the criticism to the coaches if I'm a
Right.
parent, but
Yeah, for
at
sure.
the same time, like creating again and in some concept of a safe space if you're a parent in this scenario, like your job isn't to react emotionally, especially negatively, to your kid's performance. Your job is to support them, like period.
Yeah, for sure.
And making comparisons to other kids is just like super unfair because it's not like your kid is n equals one, right? Like,
Yeah.
so it's
Also,
just
if your kid is genetically lacking, it's your fault.
your
Congratulations.
fault. Like my kid, no shot. He has no chance.
Weight class, going to be a weight class guy, be like
Yeah.
a wrestler, power lifter.
Yeah.
Yes, it's ironic that we're talking about this because Jordan Daniel, former guest on the pod, sent
Mhm.
me a video of a sports psychologist by trade, and now he has like a youth. He kind of the same thing, has like a youth coaching curriculum that he puts people through, and he was getting interviewed, and they asked him about parents, and he basically said, if I ever hear a parent being critical about their child's performance on the court, the field, whatever, then I ask that parent to like, could they do what their child is doing at the current level that their child is doing it at? And can they prove it? Like,
Mhm.
have you been here before? Can you show me film? Can you like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And what he's realized is, and this happens in anything, right? He's like, basically, the parents that have been there and competed at a high level and played at a high level are not the ones criticizing their kids because they
Yep.
understand what it's like to be
100%.
there. And the
Yep.
ones that have never been there and all they do is just trying to live the dreams they never had through their kids are the ones causing the issues. And that's the same thing
And
that we
that's
see.
the vast majority of them.
Yeah, that we see it, right? Like in business, if you're trying to build something, if you're trying to create something, it's like, oh, you only did $17,000 this year in total revenue. That's not very good. It's like, how much money did you do in total revenue? Oh,
Right. That's
you haven't
$17,000 more
even
than you made on your own
you haven't
last
even
year. So
tried to build your own bit. Yeah, like you're still comfortably sitting in W-2 land. Like that's how brave you are, huh?
yeah. Right.
If you're gonna
Yeah.
if they're gonna take that aspect to it. But yes, so that was ironic. There's actually Greg Olson has an entire podcast about this. It's
Mhm.
called the Youth Inc. podcast, and he has
Yep.
some great takes on because he's gained some notoriety as being a middle school football coach, him and Luke Kuechly,
Right.
and a lot
Yeah.
of their stuff. And they do a great job of like, dude, just ruthlessly upholding standards and
Mhm.
not accepting failure. And how they define failure is the team, the individual, the unit not performing to the level that they've shown they're capable of.
Mhm.
So it's not like, Tim, you didn't catch this pass, you're trash. It's like, Tim, I
Yeah.
know you can catch these passes because I've seen you do it the past 3 games, but then also uh, re reiterating to them that failure is not who you are, right? Like making
Mm.
a mistake or failure, quote unquote, isn't who you are. It's something that you did. And there's a difference
Right.
between the two. And
Yeah, and that kinda
making
kinda
this,
goes along with, like, coaches have a responsibility to help athletes, like, disidentify from the sport that they play and the human being that they are.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
because that just leads if they can't, like, decouple those 2 things and they identify very strongly as an athlete first rather than
Mhm.
a human being, then the likelihood that they internalize everything you say to them as a coach is exponentially higher, right? And they're good and bad, but they're definitely gonna anything that you say that isn't constructive from a critical standpoint, from a criticism standpoint, the likelihood that they internalize that negatively is way higher than if you give them constructive feedback. Yeah, they're probably going to internalize that positively, but that negative comment is going to weigh 10 times more.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's where, like, talking about like creating an environment as a coach where athletes feel like safe enough to take risks more than anything, right?
Yeah.
Because they know if they fail that you're not going to catch them, but you're going to support them, right? And that's like, to your point about like having a standard, that's something great to aspire to, but it also gives a little bit of a safety net, because like that if you don't meet that standard, you're not going to get hit with a bunch of expletives. You're not going to get told that you're worthless or that asked what you're doing out here, or your parents were
Yes.
swimming in the shallow end of the gene pool, like that whole thing. Which yeah, we can joke about that kind of stuff, but like kids internalize that stuff, and it
Yeah.
lives with them for a long time. I mean, like that first line in the survey 29% of kids quit sports cited, I'm not good enough. Like the number of times that I've repeated that to myself in my head since I started playing sports, and I was fucking good, right? I
Yeah.
believe that now, but I'm also 41, almost 42 years old. So yeah, I can look back and say, yeah, I was pretty good. But at the time, it was constant. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. And yeah, like it drove me to work hard. But at the same time, if I had framed it just like a little bit differently, my coaches would have recognized that and helped me reframe it a little bit. I probably would have had a much more positive like sport experience. Not that it was particularly negative, although one like really really good example of from my college career. So I played for 3 different head coaches in 4 years,
Oh,
and yeah, and no wonder we never finished better than 5-5. But my my head coach, my junior and senior year, was a very, very successful like nationally successful high school coach. And he assumed that he was going to come in and, create a culture like they all do. And part of his creating a culture was using shame as a motivator. Now, like if you've listened to any like of our stuff before, you know exactly how I feel about that. But as an athlete, like I was coming off of pretty successful sophomore season, all conference, and had an opportunity. I was probably going to be one of the best specialists in the country as going into my junior year. And I remember our first regular season game, I was set up to return a punt, and it was like a noon game in Marshall, Texas. And you know exactly what that looks like.
oh my
So,
gosh.
first weekend in September, super hot,
Yeah.
sun literally directly over the field. And they had a really, really good punter that year. And so, like, I lost the punt in the sun, and I'm standing basically like on the hash, like a yard from the sideline. So I'm giving myself a little bit of space so that like I can field it, but I'm probably just going to step out of bounds. And I remember like I muffed it, but it went out of bounds anyway. So we obviously retained possession.
Yeah.
And I
No harm.
mitigated the risk, right? It was a
Yeah.
smart play. And I remember when I took a step off the sideline, and my head coach was maybe 2 yards away, and he just like glared at me, and I can still see it.
But yeah.
And I remember like I didn't return another punt the rest of the year.
Oh no.
And it wasn't even a mistake. That's the thing. Like,
Yeah.
but
It's
and
crazy.
that was a pattern with him too. Like if you even thought about making a mistake or a mental error, as if there's
Yeah.
another kind of error, I mean, like he would just shame the shit out of you. Sometimes without saying a word, like he did with me.
Yeah.
But then he would follow it up with something verbal, and it was never constructive. It
Of
wasn't like a
course.
overtly negative. It was just very manipulative and shameful.
Yeah. Just a quip to
So
make himself feel better, probably.
that's exactly what it was. So, like, let's kind of flip that and maybe give like 2 or 3 things that coaches can do to create an environment where athletes don't feel like one muffed punt is going to cost them their college career, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Obviously, it doesn't
Actually,
have to be
just
that to that
no,
scale.
I just came across a quote. I talk about this a lot when I do facilitations with team building and all these different kinds of things. But essentially, the title of the chapter of this book is called "Using Failure." And so the quote is, "When those in charge demystify failure, it opens up the opportunity for increased output among individuals who no longer feel the need to play it safe." We always hear, or I always heard as an athlete, like, "Hey, you got to play to win the game, not to not lose the game." Right? Like when you play to not lose, then you're like conservative and you're not operating at the peak of your intelligence. But it's like if you're just, and ironically, right, we just had the Spurs play the Knicks. And there's when the Spurs
Mhm.
were up by 29, like you saw them kind of, we're going to slow the pace of the game down because we're ahead by 29. And then it ended up being ultimately like their demise for that game because the Knicks just kept
Right.
playing at a
And the
super high
series.
level. Yeah, yeah, for sure. So yes, right. The idea is like your athletes or your performers have to have, and when like when we use the term safe space, what I mean is like, man, they have to have enough confidence and knowledge to know I can make a mistake in the name of pushing the needle to try to perform at a higher level as I'm trying things out, right? As I'm doing some
Right.
experimentation, and that's not going to be a knock on me because I'm doing these things to try to figure out how can I be the best performer that I am, even though maybe acutely it looks like a failure or it's a shortcoming, but it might be something that turns out being really helpful for me and for the team in the long run. You have to
Yeah.
be able to
No, for sure.
sort through those things and figure out as a coach, like what's the difference? Like, is this athlete just like giving low effort, not doing things correctly because they don't want to, or are they trying to think outside the box a little bit or be creative and maximize their skill set to be able to do things they haven't done before?
Right. Yeah, and I think part of that too, from a coaching perspective, is like we all have our preconceived biases about the way things should be done or the way things should look. And if we try to put put our athletes like in that same box, then not we limit their ability to explore like you said, their own skill set and
Yeah.
maybe find a better solution. And like that in and of itself, like being able to step back as a coach and say, hey, like, yeah, okay, Glenn's got this skill set. I don't understand it, but I no, the outcome is exactly what we want. So like I'm gonna let him explore that, you
Yeah.
know. And if you make a mistake as an athlete, you can easily recover from it and go and try it again and take another risk, right? Because like I gave you the space to do so as a coach.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
it's again, it's
Yes.
not complicated. And then, like even something like as simple as like a debrief process after a practice, after a training session, like give specific feedback, like just even if it's just one or two things that maybe areas for improvement, but make it clear that the reason it's called constructive is because we're building,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And because that lands, first of all, it lands softly. Second of all, like those kids are going to leave feeling better psychologically than when they got in there or walked on the field, whatever. And they're going to approach the next practice, the next training session with a higher level of confidence and with an attitude that, like, I'm building, like, period. I may not be as proficient at, as so and so at this specific thing, but like we're moving in the same direction.
Yeah. I like that. That's cool. When you were talking about the idea of coaches helping individuals separate themselves from the sport that they play, like separate the identity they have from the sport that they play, to individuals I've been reading a lot of are Steve Magnus and Brad Stolberg. And so Steve
Mm,
Magnus was a University of Houston guy. He worked for Project Oregon at Nike. And if you know anything about Project Oregon, he was the one who blew the whistle on the whole thing. And then
mhm,
Brad Stolberg is one of his friends, and they kind of operate in this like sports psychology. What does performance actually look like? And they talked about how after Wemby in the finals had a terrible game, he was seen in Central Park like drawing a picture of a tree because before they played the Knicks the next day. Because what he likes to do and how he disconnects from all the stuff around him and he centers himself is by doing art and just drawing pictures
mhm,
of things. And so the
right,
idea that this is actually sometimes when you quote unquote, if you didn't know better, you'd be like, oh, he should be watching film. He should be getting shots up. He should be doing X, Y, and Z. But you also need to step away and find your sanctuary and recharge your battery and
mhm,
fill your cup and realize, hey, not only is this okay, it's healthy for me as a person and will make me perform better in this sport that I'm playing or the thing that I'm doing. Because when you find
right,
satisfaction in meaningful work, whether it's playing a sport or training or drawing or whatever it is, that just makes you more well rounded as a person. And when you do quote unquote fail in your sports life, it's less of a blow to you because you realize, hey, lacrosse is something that I play. It's not who I am. And I have these other
right,
things that I'm good at and successful at and I enjoy putting effort into that like bring value to my life and I bring value to them as well. So it minimizes that woe is me, fall off the deep end, can't recover aspect that a lot of people have going on when there's a lot of pressure on them and a lot of it is
yeah,
internal pressure. If you're a high performer, like the pressure you place on yourself is higher than anything anyone could put on you anyways.
right, right,
And a lot of times
yeah, and
a
that's
good coach kind of bleeds that off, right? It's like, hey, I realize this is a huge, like everyone knows the situation we're in is huge and the odds are amazing and the pressure is unsurmountable and the things we have to do. Everyone gets that. But also, Tim, you are talented enough to be successful in whatever it is you choose to do on the football field today. And then
right,
as the coach, take that off of your shoulders. And now you can find your flow state and your zone and just perform to the best of your ability.
right, yeah, and that's huge. I had something that I was gonna say, but I completely forgot what it was, predictably. But no, I think, yeah, so many good points. And, more than anything, what I try to emphasize to the athletes that I work with now is that like your self-worth is not dependent on your sport, your academic performance or lack thereof, how your parents see you, how I see you. Like your self-worth and your value as a human being is because you are a human being. Like that's
Yeah.
it. Everything that you do on top of that is great and that should add to your feeling of worthiness, but like just existing makes you valuable, makes you important. And, back to the first point, I'm not good enough. Like that kid's basically saying like I'm not important enough to the leader who I'm looking up to for him or her to pay attention to me,
Yeah.
you know? So that's my 2 cents, which was
I
way more
like
than
it.
2 cents.
I think the thought when I think of psychological safety, so I did some improv theater for like 2 years to help
Mhm.
with my sports broadcasting. And improv is one of those things where you literally don't have a plan. You're given one word, and you and six other people had to create 20 minutes of comedy that someone thinks is entertaining, right? And so, literally, before an improv team goes out onto the field, they touch each other on the shoulder and they'll look at each other and say, "Hey, I got your back." And everybody does
Mm,
it to everybody, and everybody looks each other in the eyes. And to me, what that means is when someone says, "Hey, I got your back," especially in that phrase, in that context, it means like, I may not know where we're going, but I know we're going there together
yes,
and I'm on your team.
that's
Right. And
awesome.
so that the confidence that that gives me and just like the sense of relief of knowing,
Yeah,
like, cool, we're in the same boat, but at least we're in the same boat. Right. And then we can probably figure this thing out as we
right.
go.
And if we go down, we
That's
go down together.
Yeah. And so when I think of creating an environment of psychological safety, like that's what I'm talking about. Like, hey, I'm acknowledging the unknowns that we're probably going to experience together. There's going to be some ups and
Yep.
downs. It doesn't mean that like we're babying each other or you know what I mean? Like, hey, cool, we failed. Let's be something didn't go the way we wanted it to, but failure is not the end of the line. And the best teams use failure as fuel for them to learn what happened, right? So they can
Yep.
move on from it and not harp on it all the time. So that's an important thing too, right? Is figuring out, expressing to the people that you're in charge of, excellent. Like you are not your performance. You are not your
Mm,
mistakes. A mistake is something you did. It's not who you are. Just like it's
mhm.
cool to be successful and be praised for being successful, but sometimes you just luck into stuff. And it may or may not have been your actual doing. And then
Right.
giving them the space. Yeah. And then giving people the space to push boundaries and quote unquote fail and make mistakes in the name of pushing the needle and furthering themselves in their pursuit. And then instilling into people and it's hard when you're a sport coach or a strength coach because the only time they see you is when they're playing their sport or doing this thing and your
Mhm.
livelihood depends on how good they are at the thing that they do. So it's easy for you just to be like, oh my God, you are a softball player and that's all you do and the women's college world
Yep.
series is coming up, but letting them know they're more than that. And it's okay to have other interests and hobbies and pursuits. And it's actually helpful because it gives them perspective. And the highest performers take coaching wherever they're given, right? Whether it's in the classroom, whether it's a new hobby they picked up, and they can take those things and translate them into their performance on the sport court, on the field, on the weight room. So I always talk about, I think you've said this as well, right? But there's like all good coaches have a good coach themselves because there's someone
100%.
that can always, and it doesn't like they don't even have to have been where you are. They just have a different insight and outlook on what you're going through, and they're unaffected by the emotions that you experience on a daily basis and the politics that you deal with, so they can speak clarity into a situation you're in.
100%. No, that's great. Cool. Well, hopefully, people got something out of that. And now that I'm not burying myself trying to build a business from the ground up, we can maybe record some more of these sometime soon.
But also, if you're in the Louisiana area, swing by Tim's new spot because it's cool.
That's it.
He's got air conditioning.
I do have air conditioning.
See,
Finally,
I'm
I
there.
see it's on the board. Order AC.
All right, y'all. Well, appreciate you joining us for this episode of the Gray Matters. Per usual, you can find us. You find me on the socials, on LinkedIn, Twitter, etc. You can find Tim through his newsletter, the conditioning cohort,
Instagram
all the
probably.
Instagram, all the things he's got
Yeah.
going on, and then at various, we'll be popping up at a conference near you. So keep your head on a swivel.
Yeah, if I get this up in the next day or two, I'll be in outside of Milwaukee for the National High School Strength Coaches Association's national conference. So if you're there,
Nice.
come say what's up. But Glenn's not going to be there because he didn't accept my invitation, which I extended today. So
Sorry.
unbelievable,
I'm a bad friend. My bad, guys.
with no doubt. All right, see y'all later.